Thank you very much, Mike. It's always about the eating and drinking anyways. Well, welcome to the world of sports. World Football Governing Body FIFA has confirmed that the control of the Nigerian Football Federation has been handed to Amaju Pinnick and his board. Hence, Nigeria will no longer be facing a FIFA ban. Now, the Nigerian government waded into the NFF leadership battle between Amaju Pinnick and Chris Giwa, and as a resolution was made in favor of Pinnick, who is recognized by FIFA as the legitimate head of the Nigeria football, and that FIFA will continue to closely monitor the situation to ensure its rules and regulations are fully followed. Now, joining me in the studio this morning to talk about this issue is a veteran Nigerian sports journalist, Fred Idori. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning.
Now, it's been a tumultuous one in the past, at least since we came back from the World Cup. It's been up and down, up and down. Now we have avoided facing another ban. How long do you think this so-called peace will last?
I think it should last forever, if you ask me. I mean, the government of Nigeria has taken a position, and I do not know who is bigger than the government of Nigeria. The president, the vice president has said, this is where we want to be. And if that is where we want to be, and this is our country, and the government has signed to that, conveyed that to FIFA, I do not expect that we will be going back to crisis.
So what happened to the court case? Now, we still have an outstanding court case. Yeah. We're screaming supremacy of the law. We should obey the law. What is Chris Giwa going to, what is his situation right now?
You see, when we talk about cases in court, in the first place, this case was not supposed to go to court. It's universally known that football matters don't go to regular courts. So being in court in the first place is an aberration. If you're a member of the football family, if you're a member of a family and there are rules, that this is how we are supposed to behave in our family, and then you go outside that. So in the first place, it's an aberration. And we need to recognize that, you know. So yes, you can go to court, but let's work from the answer. If you go to court, and let us even assume that the Supreme Court now gives an order to say, oh, Pinnick get out, Giwa come in. And FIFA says no. And you want to be part of international football. And you know, the minister kept talking about sovereignty of Nigeria, the laws of Nigeria, but we were talking about Nigeria participating in international football. And to that extent, your participation in that process cannot be to the exclusivity of your domestic law, because you want to play at the international arena. So there must be a meeting point between your local law and international statutes. So you can't be talking about just Nigerian law. So it is even flawed in the first place for us to keep talking about sovereignty of Nigeria, the Supreme Court, as if we are dealing with just ourselves. We are dealing with over 204 countries across the world. They also have laws. And because they have different laws and they have different courts, that is why they agreed that we will take our matters out of our individual nations' courts and all that, and we have a meeting place to sort out issues that concern football. And this needs to be simply recognized.
Now, the sports minister, he said something. He said that as much as we want to, you know, make focus on FIFA, that we also have to, you know, obey certain rules in the country. How does this not bind us? How is it not government interference, considering that we get funding, because our sports in Nigeria gets funding from the government? How is it interference when the government says you are not eligible, leave the office, and the government funding the NFF? So what differentiates these two scenarios from being interference?
In simple grammar, I think there's a difference between interference and intervention. You know, this whole thing is so simple. This is the international place. Every other country is coming to that international place. You know, now football is supposed to be a huge PR for nations. And for you to, you run a broadcast organization, and I'm sure if I want to do PR, if I want to be on air to advertise my country, my company, I need to pay some money. FIFA gives you a platform to advertise your country. You know, and they say these are the rules for you to be able to participate in this process. So as a government, if you want that advertisement, you need to fund it also. But they say funding it is not enough. These are the rules of participation. These are the rules of engagement. You see, when we talk about money, we make it look as if money itself is the be-all and end-all. Money is not the be-all and end-all. No matter how much money you have, if you want to participate in a process, there are rules. And simple rules. There are statutes, there are code of ethics, there are regulations, you know. And this is what they are saying. If you want to be part of the international arena, these are the rules. You have your laws in your country, no problem with that. But please, can they conform with our rules? If they don't conform with our rules, we are not going to allow you to participate. And if you say, oh, because I'm funding my Super Eagles, therefore I will behave according to what I think alone and not what the rest of the world thinks, well and good. You can be on your own. You see, I keep saying, nobody stops the Minister of Sports from buying football and distributing across states of the country and say kids should go to the street and play football. Nobody stops you from buying football. I just go straight to the next sports shop, I buy a football, I put it on the street and I play. Nobody stops you. But if you want to play association football at the international level, according to FIFA, in their competitions, in their events and activities, there are rules. And they say, please obey our rules.
Okay, let's bring it back home now. A lot of journalists that traced these particular incidents where FA presidents don't last after the first tenure. Now, this can be traced as far back as Galadima, as far back as 2002. Now, how do we move from this situation where these incidents keep cropping up every time we're close to an election period, where all of a sudden the current sitting FA chairman or FA president becomes a villain?
I think that I do not want to use the word mischievousness, but I think that the sports ministry itself has not come to terms with the fact that the ministry supervises Nigeria, but the ministry doesn't supervise the world. Okay. Therefore, if you want your federations to participate, to be part of international sports bodies, the international sports bodies have rules. And I think that it's just, the ministry has just been unfair. Successive ministers, they have just been unfair to keep bringing us to this process. I don't want to talk about greed. There are some people who say, oh yeah, the sports ministers, at the end of every World Cup, money is expected. And they want to see if their men, if they can bring in their men to control that money. Like we should be expecting about $8 million or $6 million from our participation in the World Cup. And some people have suggested that this whole crisis is about going to get that money. You know, I don't want to go there, but it's suggestive, you know. But the point is, can the ministry just recognize that, hey, you have your sports federation is supposed to participate with other countries at the international arena, and there are rules, and therefore we need to reconcile ourselves with the fact that there are international rules. And that is what the government of Nigeria has done. I simply find it funny that the president of the country could recognize that, the vice president of the country could recognize that, even common folks could recognize that, but the Minister of Sports simply couldn't recognize that. And successive Minister of Sports have been, you know, fiddling with that. I think it's just suggestive of certain motives, you know, that perhaps it would be a bit sad to talk about.
So how do we move from this? How do we make the NFF, I think, you know, become a bit, I don't know if it's possible for them to become independent of such interference?
I think that the government knows what to do. There is the NFF Act, you know, a bill that they're talking about passing now. All you simply need to do, this is the statute that governs football in our country. And once that statute is established and, you know, recognized by law, then I think that ministers need to recognize that, or the sports ministry needs to recognize that. Unfortunately, I think that certain persons in government have made it difficult for us to for the government or for our legislature to recognize the statute. And that is why it's not been in law, it's not been operative. So each minister comes and they begin to quote, oh, Decree 101 gives me right to control the NFA, to control the NFF and stuff like that. And it's happening not only in football, it's also happening in other sports. I mean, we had a situation, for instance, basketball, where the IAF said they mistakenly posted $150,000 to the AFN instead of $15,000 for their grant. And that money hit the AFN account. And then the AFN, the board was not in place as at that time. And somehow the money got missing. And nobody is accounting for it.
And the minister offered to pay
and the minister he first of all set up a committee to say, oh, we're going to investigate the money. Who took it? As if nobody knows who took it. But then we hear that he has gone back to tell Sebastian Coe, the president of the IAF, that, okay, fine, I will pay back gradually. You know, so there are issues. I think that it's just deliberate on the part of the sports ministry not to want to recognize the fact that, look, your countries, your national federations are participating at the international level and there are rules.
So do we expect to see an election? We've been looking forward to the next NFF Congress, of course, that we'll see either Amaju Pinnick stay back. Do you think that Giwa, with what has happened, will contest for that particular election?
Well, I think the NFF has made it very clear. We want to settle the family. We have said, take your case out of court. We will bring you back into the family. The ban on you by FIFA and CAF and NFF will be lifted. Forms are available. Go and obtain and come and participate. It's as simple as that. They have thrown what we've been talking about, olive branch. You know, it's been given since the Benin Congress. And the NFF keeps, has been consistent about that. We want peace. Therefore, can we settle this? Come back to the house. Take your case out of court. Come and pick the form. We will lift the ban on you. Get all your friends and all your members and all those that have participated with you in that process, get them back to the house. If you are really genuine stakeholders in football, what more do they need to do? Or you want to participate and you still want to be in court against the code of ethics? And how do we look at it? The Congress of Nigerian Football, the Congress comprising all the states, football associations and secretaries, that is a Congress, they have said, no, Mr. Giwa, this is not right. CAF, the Confederation of African Football, have said, no, Mr. Giwa, this is not right. FIFA has said, no, Mr. Giwa, this is not right. The Court of Arbitration for Sport has said, no, Mr. Giwa, this is not right. The federal government of Nigeria, both the president, the vice president, the attorney general of the federation has said, no, this is not right. We signed a treaty to be part of FIFA. And treaty is also a law. So if you talk about law, you make it look as if the treaty we signed with FIFA is not a law. They are all bodies of law that we signed to. It's not only our Supreme Court. And so all the bodies that are relevant to this issue have said to you, no. So why do you insist?
Okay, for me, really, it's about a right to a particular position. Yeah. I feel it's a bit going back to Chris Giwa now, but he feels entitled to probably another elections. I feel with what has happened, the way it has panned out, the federal government getting into it, does he stand a fair chance if he decides to, toe the line of the NFF, come back and make peace with the house? Does he stand a chance of winning an election?
I wish I was God. I would say he stands a chance. But what I know is that the process has been thrown open, and once a process is thrown open, everybody stands a good chance. It depends on how you campaign, how you reach out, how your personality. It depends on what you are offering. That's you. People have lost elections before, and they've also subsequently won other elections. It depends on how you relate. I mean, from his behavior, some people might be uncomfortable with him. But if he has a good team to campaign for him, apologies, promises, they see your manifesto, you want to do some things differently, you can convince people, why not? What is important is that the process is open. What follows later is your personal effort to be able to convince people to go your way. And that's what it is. I mean, nobody is going to say, oh, because Mr. Giwa felt offended, let us give it to him. No, who is going to give you on a platter? It's a contest, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And then you must contest. And if you want to win in the contest, you know things you need to do, how to go about it. Nobody is going to give him on a platter. The important thing, it is open. And the only branch is there. They have told you, take your case out of court, come back, obtain your form if you are still interested in contesting. What else?
Well, I feel every Nigerian must have been very happy yesterday when we didn't get a ban because we were scared of not qualifying. Now, what are the adverse effects that situations like this cause in our football? We're already struggling with grassroots football. Now, the established football itself, how do we go about getting our national team together? We play Seychelles in a couple of weeks.
Well, difficult. We lost time anyway. We came back from the World Cup. The NFF has been on what I would like to call a reform. We went to the World Cup seeing the FF not having any issues about transporting players, flights, bonuses, allowances, you know. The board has been able to sort out all that. They've been able to get in sponsors who believe in them. They've been able to create confidence among sponsors. And so we're seeing corporate organizations coming in to work with the NFF. And after the World Cup, we should have, you know, taken it from there, consolidated, you know. But we lost time. The league is not on. You know, the players are tired. They don't even know what it is about. We need to rebuild all those confidence. The league has to come back. We need to rebuild the confidence of sponsors. At a point, they were even talking about, oh, in the course of trying to malign the Pinnick board, they were talking about EFCC, they did this and all that, you know, just to blackmail them and get the public to buy into their agenda. They didn't even factor in how that affects the sponsors, you know, because they were even mentioning sponsors, you know, and that's difficult. Of course, if we had a ban, you know, the consequences, we wouldn't have played Seychelles for the
Nations Cup,
you know. Our players cannot even get international transfer certificate because the rule is if you are bound, your country cannot enter into any contract, your AFF cannot enter any contract with any other FIFA member. So your international transfer certificate for any player will not be honored. Your clubs cannot play continentals. Your national teams cannot play in the FIFA competitions and CAF competitions. So you're just simply on your own. But going back to the thrust of your question, really, we just have to move on. So damage has been done, no doubt about that. But we cannot stay on the damage. We have to move on, put the pieces together, and you know, make up for what we've lost, and then try to push on towards our goals and objectives. And I think it's been good.
Thank you very much for honoring our invitation, Fred Edore. Well, it's been one of those days, and just before we go, we would like to tell you that the views and reactions of our resource persons on the topics discussed on the program today are their views and have no connection with TVC.